All right, welcome back to Canning Conversations or Tet Out Early Doors. How you doing, boys? All right?
All right,
Yeah,
cool.
good mate.
Good. Unfortunately, had got some bad news in the football world this morning about Gerard Houllier passing away. That one actually that one hit me because that was my first memories of Liverpool are when we won the treble that season with the FA Cup, Worthington Cup, and the Europa League or what was it called back then? Remember what it was called?
UEFA Cup.
UEFA Cup, that was it. UEFA Cup, Christ, can't remember. But that was pretty sad, to be fair. Decent manager, decent guy. Had a load of nice things said about him today. I listened to TalkSport a little bit, and Danny Murphy was saying a lot of good things about him. Carragher called in, so that was a bit of a shite start to the week. That with the news.
Yeah, agreed. Winning the big treble.
Winning the big treble. I know, mate. Winning the big treble, better than Man United's treble in '99. So that was a pretty poor start to the week, but definitely a legend, and hope that his family and all his friends and that are dealing okay with it. I've got to call out Jason Grant, who has messaged Greg and said that he is up for taking a bet on with me that Arsenal will finish above Leeds. So Jason, I accept your bet. I think it was £20 that Leeds will finish above Arsenal. So if you'd like to message me once you watch this and hear it to confirm that you are in, then the bet is well and truly on. And after Arsenal's shambolic performance against Burnley and currently behind Leeds in the league table, Arsenal are 15th on 13, Leeds 14 on 14 points. I'm fully confident, boys, that I'm going to be picking up 20 quid here.
I'm worried for Jason and his 20 quid, I must admit. He's in Australia just now, so I don't know what he thinks about how much football he's watching right now, but if he watched Arsenal last night, I think he'd be worried himself. They were not very good.
Yeah, he could be in a bit of trouble. He's going to owe me some cash. But I'm taking it. I think I'm taking the winnings on that one. Scotty, you've had a wee rivalry going on the last week or so with a certain Conor Cleary, eh?
I wouldn't call it
not a rivalry.
Not a rivalry.
Not a rivalry. What would you call it?
The man's been called out, and he cannot handle the truth.
Is he cracking like Celtic are cracking?
Yes.
Yeah, he is. He is. Well, Conor, first of all, thanks for listening. And I'm thinking about we'll get a wee old firm special, Conor. We'll get you on, or we'll record a wee one. We'll do like a wee Rangers Celtic quiz or something. See if you can get back at Scotty before the next Old Firm game.
Just for Conor's sake, the Old Firm's when Rangers and Celtic play each other in a football game. Just in case you didn't know, young man.
Oh, yeah, as the digs continue. But yeah, Conor, mate, we'll do something with you so you can get your own back on Scotty and have a bit of a say, because he's getting to speak publicly about you and you're having to message him privately. So we'll make sure that happens. Before we get into the games this weekend, we had the Champions League and Europa League draws today. Some interesting games for the Europa League and the British teams. We had Spurs got drawn against Wolfsberger, which is not the same as Wolfsburg, apparently, that are in Germany. It's a different team. Didn't know that. Arsenal are playing Benfica, who obviously, Scott, you've seen the Rangers playing against them. That's going to be a difficult game for Arsenal with the way things are looking right now. That's no guarantee for them at all that they're going to go through to Europe. And with how they're looking, winning the Europa League might be the only way that they're going to get into Europe this season. Next season, sorry. That's a tough one. And another interesting one in Europe is Real Sociedad playing against Man United. I didn't know this, but Real Sociedad are currently top of the Liga. And they have a certain David Silva that plays for them. So he will be up for playing against Man United after playing against City. So no easy game there for United. And then the mighty Gers with a decent draw against Antwerp. How are you feeling about it, Scotty?
Yeah, delighted with that result, to be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't have asked really a better tie, I don't think.
That's definitely a winnable tie for you to get through to the next round. It's going to be interesting to see how Gerard balances out the European run and the league, because ultimately the league, especially this season's, going to be the most important thing. But
the games aren't until February and the league will be done by January. So Gerard can put his B team for the rest of the season.
There you go. He's called that. That's definitely going to be one of the Insta clips, by the way. But I would be interested to see how he balances it out, because Gerard doesn't strike me as someone that knows really how to like not go and win stuff, even as a player, no matter what, with Liverpool. So that's going to be interesting. And then looking at the Champions League, Man City got drawn against Borussia Mönchengladbach. Hopefully I said that correctly. Who, according to my pal Liam, who lives in California, he watches a lot of German football. He says they're pretty decent. They play really good football and they're quite a dangerous team. So that'll be an interesting one, because I don't see City being able to do anything in the Champions League this season. I don't know about what you guys think about that, but I can't see them doing something. I think that could be a tricky tie.
I was going to say the opposite, to be fair. I think they might do all right in the Champions League this season. I think their form in Europe has been quite good so far already this year. And then they just have to go and perform in that competition. I think Guardiola is really going to drive that home with them, which means I think they might actually do all right this year. Because the other thing that I'd say about Europe, apart from Bayern Munich, everyone's probably worse than what they have been the last few years. I don't think any, like, look at your Real Madrid, your Barcelonas, Dortmunds, even Liverpool, arguably a lot of injuries. All the teams that have done well last year, or in recent years, I'd say, well, maybe haven't got worse, but haven't improved, and City probably fall into that category as well. I think City will really fancy their chances of trying to get that trophy this year.
No, it's definitely a fair point after you said that. Definitely made me think differently about it. I think that Pep, we'll talk a little bit more about Pep later on when we get to the United City game, but he's done some mad things in the Champions League in the last couple of years, with like tactical decisions and decisions on who he's starting. And I think that if he's as good as he is, obviously it's class. He's definitely got to recognise that and not pull any punches this season and go for it. Because do you not think that? I mean, I don't want to sound like he hasn't achieved anything there, because what he did with City, certainly for those 2-3 years, getting 100 points, we've said it before. The football he played, fantastic. Some of the best football I've seen played in my whole time watching it. But he was brought there to win the Champions League, and he hasn't even really come close yet. And he's been knocked out against teams that he probably shouldn't get knocked out in, and it's difficult to do it. I mean, Fergie only done it twice in his whole time, and he is probably declared as the greatest of all time. It's definitely hard, but I don't know. Like, he's been brought in to win the Holy Grail. There's a lot of pressure on him to do it, isn't there?
Yeah, but I think obviously he's used to that pressure at other clubs that he's been at. But yeah, as you say, he's obviously made some rash calls. I think he would love to have that Lyon game back from last year, because he obviously, even I think, rested some players that game with obviously quite a heavy run of fixtures that they'd had in that competition, and obviously cost them. Well, obviously cost them big time. But I think, I don't know, I just think this year, I think he'll be going all out on that this year. And I think he can motivate his players to do the same. I think he'll be driving home what I've said about other teams aren't as good. And I think this might be the year that they do it.
Fair. What do you think, Scotty?
Never count Pep out, mate.
He's
hashtag, mate.
He's good enough. I don't personally see them doing it. I don't think they're good enough, but we'll find out. Other game as well. Red Bull Leipzig against Liverpool. Greg, we were texting about it earlier when the draw was made. I feel like teams like that suit Liverpool because they're so open and they like to press, and they're kind of going toe for toe with Liverpool. And there's not many teams there probably isn't any teams that are better than that than Liverpool, being able to press you. And if you leave that front three open to hit you on the counter-attack, you're in for a bit of trouble. But I think that's going to be the most exciting tie of the round in terms of potential goals. I think it might be quite a high aggregate score. And obviously it depends on how many of Liverpool's players are back fit by then as well for them. But I'd take that tie. I think it's going to be decent. I can see Liverpool progressing through that, and it's going to be exciting.
I would agree exactly as we said. they quite like to play like a high press out of the field as well. But which, as you say, normally, I think we were talking about it yesterday. Liverpool tend to perform maybe better against the better teams that do that against them, rather than teams that sit in. And then, but to be fair, Leipzig were pretty impressive against Man United, obviously, in that game last week. So I wouldn't take anything for granted, but exactly as you say, I would say that we've got a relatively good chance of going through that tie. I would like to think anyway.
I'm excited for that one. I think that one's going to be a real barn burner, as they say. The last game, Scotty.
Which way? Never heard anyone say that in the last 20 years.
Never heard of anyone say barn burner, man. 100%, it's a barn burner. Always say that when I'm playing against someone on FIFA. It's going to be a barn burner. Anyway, the last game, Atletico against Chelsea. That's going to be another good one, Scotty. Atletico are really difficult to play against under Simeone. I kind of personally wanted Liverpool to get Atletico again because I feel like we really should have gone through against them last season. And I want to just kind of get one back at them. But that's a real test for Lampard and Chelsea this season to get away at Atletico in the first leg.
Yeah, it's a huge test for a young Chelsea team.
That's the last game I think I would have wanted.
I know, Matthew said the same. I was up for it. I want to play them again and beat them, man.
They're horrible to play against. Like Suarez and Diego Costa up front is just no one's looking at that and thinking this is going to be a fun evening. Yeah. Like, nah, that's very bottom of my list for all 15 teams that you could get. That's the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
I think.
What did forget who it was that said it? Was it Costa said one of us can fight and the other one can bite? Him and Suarez up top. Class. No, it's true. But I'm speaking of obviously the subject of the conversation we're going to move into is kind of rising to the occasion and big moments. And I'm a big moment, big occasion fan. I want fucking Atletico. I want to beat them again. So we're going to come for them in the next round, I reckon.
Football is a game of moments.
It is a game of moments, Scotty. It is. Speaking of that, we'll move on to the first chat about this weekend's game, which was the Burnley Arsenal game. That is kind of the main talking point for everyone this week. We didn't see the first half. We watched the first half of the Leicester game, and we'll talk about them towards the end. So we flipped over in the second half. But I mean, what do you guys think first of all about what we saw with Arsenal in that game in general?
I think Arteta's got a serious problem on his hands in terms of, obviously obvious, but discipline at that football club just looks like it's in tatters just now. Obviously Pepe got sent off a couple of weeks ago for like I mean, obviously not a real headbutt, but a headbutt. And obviously like yesterday with Xhaka, their fans hate Xhaka as well. So I'm so surprised he's like, when they don't hate him, that's probably a strong word, but they already get on his back. So when he goes and does something like that, he must even walking down the tunnel think, oh, I'm just going to get absolutely ridiculed. I think any human being would. But yeah, until Arteta gets rid of those players that are causing those issues, Arsenal are going to really, really struggle. And from the looks of it, Arteta might not even be the man that gets to try and get rid of them, because even a lot of the Arsenal fans are now calling for him to go. But I think the board would still back him, but I think they're struggling there big time if something doesn't change.
Yeah, what do you think, Scotty?
I'm personally a big fan of Arsenal. I think Arsenal Fan TV is getting me through the week in these difficult times. I've never seen anything more entertaining in my life.
It is a brilliant show.
Oh yeah, unbelievable. That guy should do the podcast.
Yeah, we need to. We'll get what once we've moved up the levels, mate. We'll get him on.
Personally, I think Arsenal's a team full of individuals. There's a severe lack of discipline and leadership, especially from a player like Xhaka, who last year was captain of that team. Supposed to be one of the more experienced in the dressing room, role model. He's just not let himself down, and I don't personally think that's Arteta's fault. I don't think you can give him the full blame when the likes of Pepe and Xhaka are like they're ruining the game before it's kicked off with the attitude like that. Honestly, don't know where I'm going with this.
Well, no, I was going to say even I was going to add to your point, mate. Even like Patrice Evra said that apparently Thierry Henry doesn't even watch Arsenal when Xhaka's the captain on Sky Sports. Rash call, but
he's supposed to be one of your senior players, setting an example. And if he's getting sent off, there's something seriously going wrong in that dressing room behind the scenes and at training. I think one of you boys mentioned that, like, how brutal is that training ground going to be this morning or whenever they go back in? It'll be a horrible place to go.
Yeah,
in terms of an atmosphere.
There's
something toxic going on, and I personally don't think Arteta's. I think he could be the right man for the job, but it seems a horrible, horrible job at the moment.
There's so many stories coming out about Arsenal things. Like I heard today that. Do you remember when David Luiz and Ceballos apparently had that like scrap in training?
Yeah.
And Arteta's told the squad, like, as soon as he finds out who leaked the information, the exact words apparently were he's going to destroy them. So I mean, whether
happening, you can't say stuff.
Yeah, whether that's true or not, I don't know. Apparently, the players were not happy with how he called out Pepe last week when he got the red card. Personally, I think he was right. Pepe got too emotional. He didn't. He let his team down. Xhaka did exactly the same last night. He let the emotions get the better of him, and I just think we were saying the reason the emotions getting the better of them is because there's obviously something not quite right there, and they're definitely feeling the pressure of being at a big club like Arsenal that should be, without a doubt, in the top four, right? And they're struggling. I've said it. You guys have said it. We've all agreed. You guys have just said it there as well, that he probably should get time, but there's 2 games coming up in quick succession, right? During the weekend at the weekend. If they get beaten both those games, I don't know if he makes it past after the weekend. I mean, they're currently sitting is it 8 points-ish above the relegation zone?
I don't even think it's
that. There's less than that, I think.
Might even be less than that. I mean,
especially after getting beat off Burnley.
I agree with everything you've said, that he should get the time. He needs to get his own players in, but I don't know if he's gonna. They've
just lost that flair. Like, Aubameyang has gone to the most beautiful attacking player in the Premier League to just absolutely awful. It just seems like they've lost that charisma and that.
They just don't. They don't. Yeah, they don't look like. They looked like a unit in a team earlier on in the season, right? Like they looked like they were all working together. The shape was good. Yeah. Defensively, they were getting a bit better. They were dangerous on the counter-attack, much similar to probably the best games Man United have had on the Solskjaers when they've looked like that too. They look together, they hit teams on the break, they're fast. It's not a bad way to play.
They were so good against Man United. They cancelled Man United out, and that's when I thought Arteta was the right man for the job. But it's the last few weeks, and then you see 2 players getting sent off like that. It doesn't help the dressing room or team, does it?
What I mean.
And a manager has to discipline a player like Xhaka and Pepe for that. You can't be okay with it. He's going to go mental and he's going to upset a few players.
What do you think? Because he doesn't... Arteta's Arsenal are doing considerably worse than Manchester United. Yes, they don't have as good as a squad as Manchester United, and they haven't invested as much money. So maybe I'm answering my own question I'm about to ask you guys here. But he doesn't get anywhere as much stick as Ollie does. And Ollie's doing considerably better than him.
Yeah, obviously the investments, bro, as you say, you've probably answered it in terms of investment, but I honestly don't know why. Like, if you look at the job that Solskjaer's doing at United, it's surely, obviously, a better job than what Arteta's doing, but Solskjaer gets so much stick online and whatnot, and Arteta just doesn't get that. I don't know why. Maybe because he's been under Pep before and people know that he's learned things off Pep. I honestly don't know.
I think it's generally because nobody gives a fuck about Arsenal. Can you name an Arsenal fan?
That's true. I don't know many.
I don't know an Arsenal fan.
But
Craig Black maybe at some point in his life.
Blackie's definitely been a fan, but I think that Arteta too, this is his first time being a manager, and God, he's in a really difficult situation. He doesn't have the experience to know what to do. It doesn't mean that he's not good enough or he's not going to work it out, but he doesn't have the experience of being in this position. And I remember watching something a while ago before Gerard took the job at Rangers when he was coaching the academy at Liverpool, and he said that he was asking for Klopp for advice, and Klopp said, I don't really want to give you advice because I believe that you should need to learn it yourself. But the only piece of advice he gave him, and as hard as it is at this day and age, and why I told him to coach the academy, is make your mistakes like out of the public eye when you first start, because then you can deal with them yourself. You're not getting hammered. You know what I mean? And Gerard very, very soon after that did go on to take the Rangers job and has obviously done very well, and certain characters suit certain things. But Arteta, every mistake he's making there as a manager, tactically, or if it's personally with his players, he's getting scrutinized so much in the public, it makes it 100 times worse for you. And you feel like you have to react, and you probably don't believe in yourself as much.
I've got an unbelievable bit of journalism here.
Go on then.
Podcast. So, 20th of December 2019, Arteta signed as head coach, which was pretty much bang on a year. And his quote was, "I want people to take responsibility for their jobs, and I want people who deliver passion and energy into this football club. Anyone who doesn't buy into this, or that has a negative effect or whatever, is not good enough for this environment or this culture." What a quote that is, eh?
It's a great quote. I like the way he talks.
No listen to his words, is he?
No, I like the way he talks. I think that job with the culture and the environment is a lot bigger than anyone's maybe thought it was. Do you know what I mean?
Well, Arsenal are still a huge club, aren't they?
Yeah, that's a big job. I mean, I've been there as well, coaching, obviously at a completely different level, when I've had a team that isn't winning, and not only that, is not winning, they're barely scoring right now. When you can't, he even said it in his interview after the game. He's like, we the first thing we need is that goal. We need a goal to just get us like going, because when you don't even score, there's just zero confidence. And like I said, he'll be second guessing everything he's saying, and it's just natural. The players doesn't sound like they're really on board with him anyway, and if they're not winning games, they're definitely not going to be on board with him.
I was going to say that, but I thought it was a shite point. See, if you're scoring goals, you can almost get away with it. You can hand. It's not nearly as bad if you are scoring and getting beat. But see, when you're playing as badly as that and not scoring, there's no confidence in that team.
I mean, Greg, we obviously, like I said, we watched the second half of it. I saw that against Burnley, that was their most attempts on goal in a Premier League game under Mikel Arteta since he become manager. So they had 18 shots on goal. It didn't feel like that watching the game.
Did they all come in the first half?
They must have.
They must have all been in the first half. I don't think
Is Xhaka punching Westwood count as an attack?
I don't think
What?
I barely remember a shot.
It must have been in the first half. As soon as I saw that stat, I thought, A, we must have missed it.
Or that was last year's game.
Or it was last year's game. Or B, I mean, it certainly just did not feel like that at all, did it?
I did see that that might be the case. I did see that they got applauded off at halftime, even though it was 0-0.
Yeah.
Which probably makes obviously Xhaka doing what he did even worse, if that's what's really, because when we watched it from then on, Burnley were comfortably the better team. Probably should have maybe even doubled their lead a couple of times. But no, I think you've hit the nail on the head. They're obviously really, really low in confidence, but if they keep losing games in the manner that they are, in terms of like 1-0 here and there, they obviously drew 0-0 with Leeds. As you say, they can't have scored many goals at all in the last month.
No.
And
you've got some unbelievable players up front as well.
Yeah, and obviously Aubameyang, Lacazette, Willian, they all need to do better, obviously.
Yeah.
But
they
got bad overnight, have they? That's got to come from the coaching style or the way he's trying to play or what he's doing at training. There's something like Aubameyang and Lacazette haven't just turned into shit players.
I mean, I'm gonna make the argument for him that Arsenal have not been great for a while, and it's kind of almost the same thing as United too with Ole. At some point, it's always the manager that goes no matter what, of course it is. But at some point, you have to look at the players and the culture, because something's not right there at Arsenal. We were talking the other night. I heard that apparently they have some of the players have this competition on who can get like the nicest gold-wrapped car. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But you look at the players there and you look at how they've been performing over the last few years, and you have to say that it's not been up to standard with what you should be as an Arsenal player. Absolutely not. It's been poor, but they are, if they lose, like I said, to finish off on this, if they lose during the week and at the weekend, they're in a full-blown crisis. Like, they're in fucking trouble.
Who have they got?
It's a great question. Have a wee look at it, Greg, if you got your phone up. But
I do.
I feel bad for it. I think he might cry if he gets sacked.
I think he might cry. I said from the get-go to the boys I used to coach with in Cali, I said that he looks like the type of guy and acts like the type of guy that when he beats you, would come up to you at the end of the game and be like, "Oh, your team played really well, man. Like, unlucky, good job." But if you beat him, he doesn't even shake your hand. He looks like that type of guy. I don't know him personally, but
by the way,
that's hard to get. The guy's a legend.
Yeah, I know.
They've got Southampton on Wednesday night. Southampton are good just now.
Tough game.
And then they play Everton away on Saturday night.
You could see 2 losses in that right now, easy.
Right now, definitely. I think Southampton, who are playing really, really well, definitely do them.
Yeah.
And I mean, Everton have just beat Chelsea at the weekend in what wasn't necessarily a great game, but Everton, everyone thinks they're going to drop off, and they've still been grinding out results. So I don't know. I think Arsenal could be struggling here.
Agreed, man. You mentioned Everton Chelsea. We'll do that one next. Felt like watching it. It was a bit of a strange game. I expected Chelsea to do better than they did. I'm not saying that just because they lost, and I'm saying they needed to win, but I didn't feel like they went there looking as a team that were really, not title challengers, I guess what I'm saying. They went to Everton, who are definitely not the same Everton as the first 4 or 5 weeks in the season, right? And I don't know, I didn't feel like they got a hold of the game. I didn't feel like they dominated. I didn't feel like they looked like they were a big team in that game.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think they maybe just didn't really get going. And then, obviously, then when the keeper comes out and clatters into Calvert-Lewin and they get a penalty and Everton go 1-0 up. Because let's be honest, Everton didn't really look like scoring too much either until obviously that penalty gets given. And then I think once Everton went 1-0 up, Everton seen the game out relatively comfortably, to be honest. I think Chelsea, I wouldn't look into that too much. I'd say Chelsea just played poorly, which is going to happen throughout the year.
Yeah.
And I think that's just one of them ones that, like, I think they just sweep it under the carpet. Look, lads, we didn't play well there today. We go again midweek and hopefully play better.
Yeah, Scotty, I think that this weekend, if you looked to the fixtures before the start, you looked at it and you thought, this is a weekend for one of the teams that are, at the top to really gain some points and kind of make a bit of a statement. Obviously, you had Chelsea playing Everton. I think before the game, most people would have said Chelsea are going to win that, should win that. The record's not very good at Goodison. You obviously had the Manchester derby. Tottenham away at Palace, not an easy game. And then Fulham, Liverpool, you would have said Liverpool would have won that comfortably too. But it was just a weekend where it was an opportunity for Chelsea and Lampard to continue on a good run, keep the consistency going. And like me and Greg have just said there, they didn't quite do it, did they?
No, and I think what you're saying there, it felt like a weekend where a win felt like way more than 3 points. It was a big. If you went and beat Everton Saturday night, it was lay down a big marker. Also, they didn't know what was going to happen with Spurs and Liverpool playing the next day. But if you go and win Saturday night, it makes their job even harder. And I think what you find out is Lampard's not a man for the big occasion, and Mourinho will finish above him this season.
Oh yeah, Greg and Scotty, you guys have got that, don't you?
I think I've got Chelsea to beat Spurs.
I was about to say I took Tottenham.
Lampard gone. I think Ziyech was a big miss for Chelsea.
Yeah,
he seemed to have changed that team a little bit, and Havertz isn't the same as Ziyech.
Yeah, let's chat about Havertz, because
I think they just lost that. I don't know what it was, but they lost it.
Matthew made a really good point. Unfortunately, again, he's not here with us today, but we're working on to get him on once a week. He said that Havertz almost unsettles the balance of the Chelsea team, which, watching it at the weekend, they looked like they'd found the balance of who they had in their team, and it looked like he was sticking with it. And he seems to have been a very good player. A lot of teams are looking at him. He done very well in the Bundesliga. Again, from people I know that do watch the German league, they've said that he is a player. He's got something about him, but he just, I don't know, just when he plays in that team, the balance just seems off.
I don't know what his role.
He doesn't know what he's doing, does he?
Yeah, Greg, you're right, because he doesn't really play in behind, and then he kind of goes wide. Like I don't understand really what he's trying to do there. And I think this is Lampard's test, because when you spend that amount of money on a player, the pressure's on you to play him, right? And it takes a lot to buy someone for that and not play them. And it's almost like he feels like he has to put him in. And obviously Ziyech getting injured and Pulisic being injured, he didn't have much of a choice this week. But I said it when we were watching it, Giroud looked so isolated up top. He had no one around him. And Giroud's so good when you get close to him and he can play off you and everything with his feet. Obviously, I do love a bit of Olivier Giroud, but I don't know. He just unbalances the team, I think. And
at least with Ziyech on the pitch, even if there's nothing happening, he's still capable of whipping in a ball out of nowhere and putting in that little bit of quality that can change a game. Which it seemed they were missing on. Oh, the penalty changed that game, but
it did.
Chelsea didn't have that bit of quality on the pitch to just go and if you're playing Everton without James Rodriguez or Digne, there's a team there for the taking.
Yeah.
But it's fair play to Ancelotti for winning that game without those two players. But
there's a couple of things about this. Is kind of about this whole conversation we're going to have as a whole. But there's Liverpool and City have set such a high bar in the last 2 years by barely losing any games that it has definitely already, you can see it, it's dipped back down to somewhat of normal. And I think we've all forgotten about what it was like before the two teams at the top were losing a game or two a season, which is literally never been done before. So it feels like you can kind of get carried away with the team losing or drawing because of what you're used to. But for me as well, it's more about the performance and how you look at it. And I was watching that game when they went 1-0 down, the penalty changed it. I just expected a little bit more from them. I know we kind of mentioned this week. I mean, I don't think they have the mentality to win the league this season. They might be in and thereabouts, but I don't think that squad has the mentality yet to do it.
Yeah, I think we mentioned that. I think I mentioned that last week in terms of it's hard to get that many new players to gel that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably going to be Lampard's biggest biggest task maybe, is getting them to gel in such a quick manner that I think when people, don't get me wrong, I think they'll be up there. I think they're a very good team, but I don't think they'll win the league this season. No.
Yeah, can Lampard have 15 or 16 players capable of winning the league? Probably not. He's got 11 or 12 that can win it, but you can't win a league with 12 players, can you?
I mean, I saw this stat this morning, and I found it interesting, and I looked at the amount of games that has been played, and I was kind of like, that's kind of makes it nothing stat, but Chelsea have not yet beaten a team that is currently in the top 10 all season. So anyone that they've played that's in the top half of the table, they have not beaten, which is an interesting fact. Only played 12 games though?
Yeah.
So I mean, you're one of the teams in the top 10. So it's a bit of a nothing stat, but
Mass was never your strong point, young man.
No. It was something that was getting banded about, and this is my point. I was like, you see these things getting put around there, and you're like, holy shit! But then the reality of it is, well, we've played 12 games, but
at the same time, that's still something that needs to improve.
Yeah, it does. It does. Just quickly on Everton, things have kind of calmed down with them a little bit. As always, there's always a team that starts off quick and everyone's like, holy shit. They've kind of come back to a little bit of normal now. They're a little bit inconsistent. They're obviously missing James. They're missing Digne. It was a big win. But, I mean, what do you guys think would be good for Everton this season? Like, what should their aim be this season?
I think Everton are good, to be fair. They're better this season than I can ever remember, really. In terms of, like, they're definitely going to take points off the bigger teams throughout the whole year. As we've mentioned before to each other, I think it's just that squad depth that I'd probably be concerned about.
Yeah.
So I think something that Ancelotti will work on for the length of time that he's there. I think he will get people in. We've also mentioned before that they need to get a different keeper. If you want to be challenging for, like, I'd say they can challenge for the top 6 comfortably this year. But if you want to be going up to that next stage of challenging for top 4, which I think Everton as a big club would want to be, they need a better goalkeeper.
Yeah,
for sure. But I think this year, I think if you offered my dad top 6 for Everton, I think he'd be delighted.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think, Scotty?
I think what I love about the Premier League right now is you're asking do Chelsea have the mentality to go in the league, but going to Goodison on a Saturday night against a Carlo Ancelotti team, I mean, that's not easy. Like, there's no seriously easy games anymore. Like, there's a lot of good managers, a lot of good teams. Like, yeah, the mentality, but I mean, playing Ancelotti's got a well organised team. You're never going to lie down and just beat Carlo Ancelotti.
No, it's very fair, Scotty, and this is going so smoothly tonight, lads. This moves us into the Man United Man City game perfectly because there's not a lot of easy games in the league this season. And United played against City. It's a derby game. Again, a game for Solskjaer where he's just been knocked out of Europe. An opportunity for him to do something there. Probably his thought process was probably not lose rather than win, which says a lot about where Man United are. It's not a dig. That's the fact. Man United at home, even with the players that they have and the squad that they have, that says a lot about them. And a City team that dipped last season and look like they haven't gone back up to that level. They look like they've been brought down to normalcy. What did you guys think about it? Because the chat about that game has been that it wasn't very good, and I would agree.
I think that's a little bit harsh, right? You've just been knocked out of Champions League midweek, and you're coming to play Man City, potentially the second hardest game you'll get all season. A Man City team,
right?
I know Man United are a bigger club than the mentality of not to lose, but if you're Solskjaer, of course you're going to plan not to lose. Because if you get knocked out of Champions League, then get beat off Man City,
so
you're on the line again. But if you draw Man City, not many people talk about it. It's not a bad result. It's not a good result. But
this is
about Solskjaer getting sacked.
This is my further point. This is my wider point on this, right? The mentality that those two teams showed in that game. It's one game. I understand that, right? And a lot can happen. And I might come back to bite my words in a few weeks or at the end of the season. But going into that game with that mentality, that's to me is not a title winning mentality. I think, yes, of course you go into a big game like that and you're cautious and you need to be, especially against City, like you say. But if you're going to be all that, you certainly get until at least minute 60 or 70, I think, going for it. Do you know what I mean? And I don't mean you have to play all out, expansive, open attacking football, but you have to rise to the occasion and go for it. And if you we watched the Anthony Joshua fight as well. That was a big occasion for him because the fight ultimately leads on to Tyson Fury, and he stepped up to the plate. He wasn't defensive. He went out there. He done some great boxing. Went on the front foot and he won. And I just think, Greg, that neither of those teams went out to win that game.
I would agree. I would class that game as boring. I think that's probably it wasn't an entertaining watch in any way, which does lead to the fact that it did look like both teams were maybe more happy just to avoid losing and maybe getting some criticism off the back of a defeat in a Manchester derby than they were trying to actually win the game. But exactly as you say, I think even Gary Neville mentioned in commentary that if one of those sides had conceded, they could have absolutely no complaints at all because both of them had actually offered nothing going forward. So
nothing.
If you then concede, well, you can't complain over it because you've not even tried to go forward yourself. But then at the same time, let's be honest, it didn't look like anyone was going to concede because I don't think there was a clear-cut chance from what I can remember.
Do you think, Scotty, that, I mean, I personally think that out of the two teams where they've been at in recent times, the onus certainly was more on Pep with the team and the players that he has to go out there and be more on the front foot than Solskjaer and United. Yeah. And he didn't.
100%, especially after Man United just conceded 3 during the week, coming off a massive loss in Champions League. If you were Pep, or if I was Pep, also I know fuck all about football, for the first 10 minutes, I'd have been all over them, trying to attack for the first 10 minutes, put them under pressure. If you sneak an early goal against Man United on Saturday, it could have been any scoreline. But nothing. Man United were never really under pressure at the back.
To be fair though, Pep must know that Solskjaer's thinking they're going to come and play. And let's be honest, Man United's biggest strength is sitting in and hitting teams on the counter-attack.
Very true.
And if Pep knows that Ollie's going to try that, then maybe Pep's initial instinct is, well, I'm just going to sit deeper for the first 20, 30 minutes and see what happens.
Yeah.
And then once that game, especially with no fans as well, I think, to be fair, it does make a difference.
Definitely.
But
100%.
once that's been set and both teams are getting a little bit cagey, it's then very hard. You see with the way Liverpool started yesterday, not to change the teams, but it's very hard to then get yourself out of that rut. So
100%.
when both teams have started in that cagey manner, it's then just very, very difficult it's not like just flicking a switch and then all of a sudden City are going to come out and play at you.
Yeah.
And I think it almost just dragged on for 90 minutes. I don't think at any point either team decided, right, now's a chance, let's come out.
100% agree with you, Greg. But do you think if City had Aguero playing, that would have changed the game?
Yeah, it does, because he's an incredible striker, and
you've got way more trust in him.
There was a moment in that game, right, where we watched it where I think Jesus got put in, and he did like a weird turn to face his back to goal, and it's just like, I'm not saying that anything different would have happened, but you just feel like with Aguero, he makes little things out of those moments and he scores, and that's why he's a big player. And I think that's a position Man City need to look at, because we had this chat about Jesus the other night. His goal record is actually very good for Man City, which I was a bit taken back by, but I don't feel the same fear when Jesus is playing up front as I do Aguero. And I know that Aguero's going to be near on close to impossible to replace.
You're going to love this, Cannon, but I just don't see Jesus rising to the occasion like an Aguero. I love that. And that game on Saturday needed a big moment where Aguero just slots one out of nowhere.
Overall, right? If you think of Man City, how they have been in the last since Pep's been there, right? Let's call it 3-4 years, whatever it's been. They were invincible, or felt invincible. No one wanted to play them at one point, right? And it was almost like teams were showing up, certainly towards the lower end of the league table, thinking, let's just get out of here not getting scudded 5-0. Not even going for the win and just being like, let's not get scudded 5-0. And slowly but surely over the last 18 months or so, of course the level's going to dip. Teams are now being like, they're not the same. We can get a little bit at them. And I don't think Pep has ever been in this position before as a manager, where teams have ever thought that about one of his teams. Do you know what I mean? And it's just interesting that I just never seen Pep go to a game like that and not try and look to fully dominate it. Do you know what I mean? And it's just, I wonder where, and by the way, just to be clear, Man City could definitely still win the league this season. But I just, they're in a really interesting spot right now.
You know what's weird about that? I think City are probably better defensively, more sure at the back than they have been, which surely gives you more freedom to go out and attack. But they seemed so scared of Man United on Saturday. They just sat and didn't play.
I don't know. I don't know what you think. They're in a weird place. I think Pep's in a weird place as a manager. The team's in a weird place. We do fantasy. I mean, how many people have had Kevin De Bruyne in their team this season? Barely any. And he's a shoot. The last 3 years he's been a shoe-in. I mean, you have him in you keep him in every single week. I'm not trying to slag Kevin De Bruyne off. I think he's one of the best, if not the best player in the world. But there's a little something there with City where it's not quite clicking either, isn't there? There's definitely something there.
Yeah, the thing is, it's going to, I'd be very surprised if it doesn't click at some point. Like, if you look at their next 3 fixtures in the league, they'll probably take 9 points from them. And when, Tottenham play Liverpool, obviously, and then Leicester play Tottenham at the weekend, I think you'll find by the fixtures on Boxing Day, City will be right there or thereabouts already, and they've not even clicked yet.
They'll be up there for sure. I just wonder this season when they're up there towards the end, because I think it's going to be so much tighter than it has been. If when they're up there to the end, do they have the mentality this season to push through those moments and get on? And from what I've seen from them towards the end of last season and this season, I'm not too sure. And they're definitely got a group of players that are more than capable of switching that on and proving me wrong. But I don't know. I'm sat here as a Liverpool fan, knowing that the praise for Jurgen Klopp has been, and Liverpool with the injuries has been, look how much of a tight unit they still look together, and look at how they're all still digging in for each other with all the bad things that they've had. And I think that mentality this season for any team, if they can keep it going, that's what's going to win you the Prem this season. If you have that mentality of people potentially still getting COVID, a few more injuries I'm sure still to come, which team has the mentality without their big players there, or in a tough game, in a moment where you need to dig in, who has that this season? I think that's going to win you the league. And I'm not too sure if Pep and City have it. On what we've just been saying, by the way, to back it up, Man City have now failed to score in their last 242 minutes away in the Premier League. It's their longest wait for an away goal under Pep Guardiola. The last time they scored away from home in the league was Halloween. I mean, Man City, with all the players they have, haven't scored an away goal since Halloween.
Yeah.
It's mad.
That's mad.
Yeah.
That's mad.
That's mad.
There was before we kind of finish talking about that and we move on to the Maguire and Stones thing. Gary Neville made a great point. You mentioned it, Greg, about them. If one team had conceded, they probably couldn't complain. There was a great thing he said, which was there was no intent to go and win the match today from either side. If that was Jose Mourinho in the dugout, everyone would be hammering him. Spot on.
Yeah.
Mourinho gets dug out every week for sitting in and not going to win and playing for a point. Both those teams did that, and no one said anything about it.
Chelsea Spurs, we were praising them, saying it was a great game. Now the manager wanted to lose, and fair play to them.
Yeah.
Well, Man United and Man City do. They get absolutely pelted.
It's an interesting one. This to finish off on this game, this kind of leads me into the big question I want to ask you guys. The Maguire and Stones thing, I mean, yeah, it's people have said a lot about it. It's not good. Roy Keane wasn't a happy man about it. And I get it. It's a derby match. It's Man United, Man City. They're pals. We know that. They both play for England, but we said it. Just go down the tunnel, do it behind the scenes where no one sees it. I'm sure that still went on back in the day when, people were a little bit more at each other. I'm sure that still happened on behind the scenes. But they did it out on the pitch. That kind of summed up the game. Like, everyone was kind of like pally and no one wanted to lose. But for me, this is the big question I want to get to. Big games in the Prem rarely live up to the hype anymore.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think
rarely.
Just on the Stones and Maguire thing, that's just the way modern football is. That's been happening for, like, they're not the first two to obviously do that after a game and go and chat to each other from opposite teams. That's been going on for a fair few years now. But just the point that you made, the big games in the Prem so often end up being these boring 0-0s where people are scared to lose rather than go out and try and win. It's very rare that there's goals in these games now.
No, definitely, Greg. Like, Scotty, I just think that growing up, one of the things that really did make the Prem was those battles between United and Arsenal, United and Liverpool, Chelsea when they were at the top with Man United, Liverpool and Chelsea, all those teams. And I know the game has changed, so you have to accept that. But I
was watching the thing a few weeks ago, and it was Roy Keane and Patrick Vieira going back over old games and stuff, and they were still angry at each other in the present day. They're still going at each other back and forth. I was like, I couldn't believe what I was watching, but that mentality is gone. Like, and they literally wanted, they have respect for each other, but as soon as they got on the pitch, they wanted to destroy each other. And if they ended up 0-0 or if they got beat, they were absolutely devastated after. They weren't walking off shaking hands, and also shook hands, but they weren't like best friends afterwards, were they?
No, not at all. What I'd like to do at some point actually would probably be do a wee podcast on that. Like, what has changed with the Prem, because it gets called. It's all we get shown really here in the UK is the Prem, and obviously because it's where we live, but it gets built up to be the best league in the world, and anyone can beat anyone, and I get it, but when it comes to the big games, you look in the German league, there's goals in them at least. You know what I mean? And they're a little bit more exciting. And I'd actually love to dig into that a little bit more with, Germany, Italy, Spain, France, and kind of just look at the bigger games and see how much more exciting they are. Of course, you're still going to get the odd 1-0s, 0-0s and stuff, but the big games are boring these days.
I think that's what makes the Old Firms so exciting. Is there's genuine passion on the pitch. Players, they generally they're trying so hard to win that game. There's so much passion. No matter the quality of the game, there's still something happening. There's still excitement. There's still passion. It's still worth watching. Whereas we could have turned that Man United game off on Saturday night, no bother. I would have watched Strictly Come Dancing.
Yeah, it wasn't very good. Speaking of the Old Firm, Scotty, the other game that we watched was Dundee United and Rangers.
I've got one more point on Pep Guardiola.
Oh, go on, mate. Go on.
Ever since he started wearing Puma gear, he has lost it. He needs to go back to Stone Island and bring back the old Pep.
Come on, Pep. Get back on the Stone Island gear, mate. It's smart.
He was unbeatable with Stone Island on.
He was. Right. He definitely was. I agree with that, Scott. Pep, bring back Stone Island. I'm sure he tunes into this, so he might get the message. But Scotty, Rangers against Dundee United. I mean, obviously the kind of topic this week of being rising to the occasion and kind of just winning on a Sunday afternoon or Sunday lunchtime, should I say, kickoff on a cold and wet day in Dundee. Didn't flatter, didn't play great, not the best I've seen you play, but won most importantly, and we're comfortable throughout the game, really.
I think that was the most nervous I've been watching Rangers game in a long time, and I think last season that would have finished 2-2. I think Rangers would have found a way to drop points last season, which I think was a real mature performance. They were absolutely awful first half, and then if it wasn't for a moment of magic, from 2 moments of magic from Tavernier with a free kick and the cross, it could have been a very different game. But you need a big player to step up to the occasion.
You do.
In a game like that. And I think second half a lot better. So again, that's a sign the Rangers are improving. And this came in at half time, seen where they're going wrong, and sort of changed it around second half. But yeah, it was a horrible game. Sunday lunchtime, the piss and rain.
Yeah.
I didn't care what that performance was, as long as you win that game. Which
totally.
Rangers team for a long, long time. It's what Celtic have done for 9 years. No matter how bad they play, they found a way to win.
You're spot on, mate. Greg, I mean, we saw it for the first time last season in our lifetime as a team we support, Liverpool winning the league. Scotty, you haven't seen Rangers do it a lot, unfortunately, in the last 10 years. But we, like I say, Greg, we saw it last season. There was so many games where Liverpool were poor, but they just grinded it out. You won 1-0, you won 2-1. We talked about the Burnley game, right? Where Manny scores the header and all that stuff. Rangers just did that on Sunday. They just grinded out the result, and that's what champions do.
I'd agree. They definitely got away with one with Morelos, to be fair. And by the way, as much as I wanted to just quickly bring it up, as much as I obviously love him, Stevie G coming out and saying that there's no intent there and there's no elbow is embarrassing. Like, I'd much rather, I know they can't do it because they can't throw their players under the bus. I'd much rather he came out and said, yeah, we've got away with one, that's shocking, and just admitted it, because he just sounds like an idiot.
Yeah. He has previously called him out before and said he was lucky to be on the pitch and stuff. I can't believe Gerard said that.
Neither can I.
I think he gave Morelos a rollicking after, but I'd love him to go out and say, look, we were so lucky to have him on the pitch, because he were. It was an absolute moment of madness. Imagine Morelos gets sent off, we lose that game. That's such a turning point in the season, and it could all come down to one man.
He's off his head, that guy. We said it, right? Like, even we get it, he's backing his player, but what you do in that situation is you say, I've not seen it back yet, I'm not too sure. Yeah. And then that's it over and done with. They never ask you about it again. And
by the way, when you actually look at his performance, Morelos' performance,
the best thing he'd done all game.
It's worrying, because I think with behaviour like that and doing things like that and playing the way he's playing, right now he's going to cost Rangers points before he gains them points. Which I think Gerard will take on board, and I think Rangers definitely need to, if they can still get 12 million for him or whatever they were trying to get, I think they definitely need to cash in. I don't even know if they'll get that much from now.
Nah,
I'd be very surprised if he starts the Old Firm game.
I think
no chance.
You can't risk that, because the way he's playing so bad, missing so many chances, he's getting so grumpy, and when he gets grumpy, he's a dangerous man to be around, like myself.
He's mental, man. I agree with everything you guys have said. He should have been sent off. It's not right. It's dangerous. It's reckless. You shouldn't be doing that. But I just want to take a second to mention this. It's so refreshing watching games of football without VAR. I'm actually enjoying watching whatever Scottish game is on TV at the weekend, more than some Premier League games because there's no VAR and there's some decent tackles. And yeah, that's wrong from Morelos, but there's VAR. He's obviously gone. But I mean, it's part of the game, isn't it? But I'm very happy it's not in there. Scott, you mentioned Tavernier. His free kick was incredible. It was David Beckham-esque. He's been absolutely insane. As a right back, he has scored 10 goals, which is the most in the league this season, and he's got 7 assists, which is also the most in the league this season. And he's a right back. Not just him, a few other players, but do you think Rangers will have a bit of an issue keeping on to him and a couple other guys in the summer if they continue to keep performing like this?
Yeah, it'd be absolute madness if we don't get if he stays. Like somebody's going to come calling for him, surely.
You would think so. I think you said Leeds.
Leeds and West Ham are definitely after him. He suits Leeds so well.
He would suit Leeds. He would suit Leeds.
And if they give any sort of money, you can't say no to it as Rangers, can you? As long as he wins the league this year.
I genuinely, honestly think because unfortunately you're in the Scottish League, which means you can't demand as much as you were if you were obviously in the Prem. But I think if you're talking 20 million from Morelos back then, I think you could easily get 20 million for Tavernier. I think you could get 20 mil, 15 to 20 mil for Tavernier would be a good bit of business.
Yeah, the only thing is he'll be 29 by the end of the season, I think.
Oh, okay.
He's got one big move in him. But.
Yeah, he's got one more big move, 3 or 4 years. I think he looks good. And by the way, it's weird because you both of you will know a lot more than me. I obviously know who he has been as a player, and he's always had a little something to him. But he's done very well. Just because he's doing well at Rangers doesn't mean he'll go to the Prem or somewhere and do well. Sometimes he just suits a certain style and a certain manager, and he actually might like it. He might want to stay. You never know. I don't know
if he wins the league this year, you'll be a Rangers legend, and I wouldn't want to leave, would you? And then
I think we were talking about it at some point as well, though. I think if he goes down to, I think he'll definitely stay past January, obviously, and he'll stay till the summer. 100%. But again, it does come down to if he goes down to England, he's going to at least double, if not triple, his wages. Don't even know what he's on at Rangers, 25 grand a week, maybe, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to at least be on 50 if he goes down to England, to like a Leeds or something like that. And I don't think it matters how. I think that's hard to say no to. I'd be surprised if he stays.
As an English man as well. So.
I would too, and obviously that's you kind of do the Gerrard and Klopp comparison because everyone kind of feels Steven Gerrard will be the manager after Klopp, and Klopp has been through that, right? At Dortmund, got his best players poached from Bayern, and it's a good test for Steven Gerrard to see how he adapts to that when and if that does happen. Before we move on from Rangers and we talk about the other side of Glasgow, Rangers have played 29 games this season, won 25, drawn 4, haven't lost, scored 75 goals, conceded 12, have 20 clean sheets, are top of the league by 16 points, and won the Europa League group. I mean,
and we play this weekend, and Celtic play in the Cup, so it's another game in hand after this.
Another game in hand. I mean, it's said this last week. If you're a Celtic fan and you listen to this and you think we're being biased, I have no allegiance to them, but I've just read out the facts there. Rangers are in a considerably better position, and it's incredible. Stevie G, I mean, obviously I'm personally happy he's done well because growing up he was literally my idol, probably the same as Greg. So I'm really glad he's gone down there to Rangers and he's done well because there was a season or two last year, 18 months, where people were questioning it and a lot of Rangers fans still weren't sure. But without a doubt, he's turned that around. And if he wins the league title, he's going to be a legend there.
Very quickly on Tavernier, but when he first came in, he got so much abuse as a player. He got off the great start the first few games, but he got so much abuse from Rangers fans, and it is so pleasing to see him turn into the player he has. Just even if he wasn't a Rangers player, if I'd seen that with anybody, starting off as poor, getting all the abuse, working hard, and then becoming one of the best players in the team in the league, it's so good to see.
That's good. Celtic needed something to change. They needed to win, regardless of how they did it. They won in midweek. I watched the kind of last 35 minutes or so of that game, and they they dug in against it was Leo. Pretty sure I'm right in saying. Yeah, it was Leo. They dug in against Leo. And when the final whistle went, I could see it on their faces, and I could see it on Neil Lennon's face. It was like, thank fuck. They needed that. They followed it up again with another win this week. They just have to just keep that going. They can't afford to lose like 2 games in a row or anything like that again. They need to keep that going. They've got a lot of work to do, but those 2 wins are really good turning points for Celtic. They've got a lot to claw back, but what do you think, Scotty? Is there any part of you that looks at that and thinks kind of like, not oh shit, obviously, because you're quite a bit ahead, but holy shit, there he is.
Oh, Bobby!
He's back from knocking on doors, mate. What is that, Barnet?
What's happening, troops?
we were
Can I hear them?
You can't hear them because I've got my headphones in, mate.
John Cena.
We were telling the fans that you'll be back on at some point.
Shout out to all my fans. I promise you I'll be back soon. So stay tuned, please. And is it this weekend? Will I be doing one this weekend?
We're gonna try do something this weekend, if not the weekend after.
Wow.
Fucking
Class, mate. Class. Canning conversations in person.
I miss it.
Good, mate. You'll get back.
Can I join the conversation?
You can go out and invite you. We'll get you in, mate.
I meant just here.
No, you can't just sit here right now.
What are we talking about?
Not feeling very comfortable. You just got into Celtic, mate.
Boo!
that was for Conor Cleary as well. That boo.
Oh wait, heads up to all my fans. If anyone's looking for good energy, then hit me up.
Christ. Might have to edit this bit out. Christ's sake. Sorry, Scotty, where were you? I was asking you about
did
Celtic.
I think, oh shit, when I seen Celtic?
Yeah, I mean, not oh shit, maybe that's a bit strong.
By the way,
but
that Lille team were pushing for qualification at the group, so it was a tough game. It was a great win, great turnaround, and then that game on Sunday for them was massive. Could they follow it up? And they did. The only thing, again, is that Rangers play this weekend, but they don't in the league. I feel like they've started getting it going again, and all of a sudden it's like a bit of a, which I think is harsh. But yeah, that competition should have finished last season, but it is what it is. But I definitely feel like if they had a game this weekend, it would be massive for them. And if they'd won that again, they could easily go on that roll. And as I said before, that Celtic team's capable of going on an unbeaten run for who knows how many games. But I just feel like they've just been stopped in their tracks again this weekend. And all of a sudden, Rangers have a great chance against Motherwell to put 3 more points on the board.
yeah, it's a distraction.
And they've got 3 games in hand. It's like all of a sudden they're going to have a crammed.
It's a distraction for them, isn't it, Greg? Yeah. Really, right now, it's a bit of a distraction. It's obviously a cup. You want to win. You want to win a cup, of course, but it's a little bit of a distraction.
I think the issue is as well is that honestly you can't really see Rangers losing at the moment, and then there's still 3 old firms this season still to come, and if realistically Celtic are probably going to have to win 2 of them and avoid they're going to have to get 2 wins and a draw out of that.
Yeah,
because Rangers aren't going to drop enough points elsewhere. Really.
Mm-hmm. The old firm games are huge for Celtic.
Yeah, they need to win, as I say, 2 out of 3 minimum, and then probably avoid getting beaten the other one, which is obviously tough going, especially the way the Rangers are playing. I just think that, and it's happened before, obviously, when teams in Scotland are going for 10, and I think the poor form, which is I think a fair assessment of how they've been playing, is came at the wrong time, and it's just allowed Rangers to build that gap, and I don't think they close that gap, and I'm afraid I think the league's just about gone for Celtic, and I think even some Celtic fans would probably agree with that.
Yeah, massively. I wanted to ask you guys this, and by the way, if anyone's a Celtic fan that listens to this is not a dig. This is a genuine question from someone that's not been in the country for the last 8 years, pretty much the whole time Celtic have been dominant. There's all this stuff about like get the board out and sat the board. Were they saying any of this for the last 9 years?
Nah.
That's not a dig. That's a genuine question. Like it feels like it's flipped so far one way. I just wondered if there's been anything in there before anyway. I
think part of the problem there lies with the fact that a lot of Celtic fans didn't want Neil Lennon in the first place. Obviously, they've gone from Rodgers. Neil Lennon had whatever issues he had at Hibs, I'm not even sure what happened there. He threw a chair at someone or something. And then those issues, obviously Celtic fans are made aware of that. They got him in at the end of the season because he was probably the only person that would take the job. He's then won the Scottish Cup for them, or won the treble, got them to the end. And then they've given him the job. But even Celtic fans then were saying he probably shouldn't, we don't want him to have the job. And now that he's now performing poorly and the board are refusing to sack him, it's almost hurt them even more because they didn't initially want him to have the job and now they're refusing to get rid of him. And I think that's where the problem lies with the Celtic fans with sack the board and stuff like that because they're now not listening to what the Celtic fans are wanting pretty much, or a fair amount of Celtic fans are wanting.
Interesting. Yeah. I didn't know that. So that's interesting. But I just saw that. I saw the videos and I was like, seems like a big 360. I wonder if there's been anything there. But it's looking good. Celtic need to keep winning and to try and make it interesting. I'm looking forward to that first Old Firm game. Would you say it's on the 2nd, Scott?
2nd of January, yeah.
It's going to be a big game. We need to try and get we'll definitely do a wee podcast after that, like a wee analysis after that one.
The second biggest fight of 2021. Fuck your Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua.
Rangers Celtic, Scott Gillis, Conor Cleary. Jan 2nd, brilliant. The last two games that were on at the weekend, I want to talk about them both together because I feel like it's two teams that are being spoke about the most in terms of challenging for the league title. And those games are Palace against Spurs and Fulham against Liverpool. We watched them back to back. And let's start with the Palace game just very quickly. It was a game that, without fans, personally for me, I think ends up being extremely boring, and Spurs actually probably go on to win 1 or 2-0. And I don't think Palace get themselves back into that. So thank God we got fans back. It's going to make a big difference for the home teams, isn't it? Having your fans there and the away team, it's difficult. What do we think about it, that game for Spurs, on Spurs' perspective anyway?
I thought Spurs started quite well, to be fair, as you say. First, they obviously got their goal, which was poor goalkeeping, but the keeper made some really good saves, to be fair to him. And I think they started quite well.
Yes.
I think we mentioned at the time, I was just so surprised to see how early on in that game Spurs sat in. Like, you can understand that naturally happens if you're 1-0 up, holding on with 10 minutes to go. You're going to get deeper and deeper. But Spurs were sitting back in like the 55th, 60th minute. And it was almost just like onslaught of attack from Palace after that. And to be honest, it looked like it was only going to be a matter of time. I know they got quite a scrappy goal in the end, but they were getting a lot of balls in the box. Benteke was a bit of a handful. And it almost looked like it was just a matter of time. And the thing that's quite surprising is that it's probably the first time Spurs have really, I know they obviously blew a big lead against West Ham, but normally they have kind of been going for the kill in terms of they still try and hit teams on the break, but that just didn't seem to be happening. I don't know if they just couldn't get a foot on the ball or something, but there was no out for them on. Normally they get the ball into Harry Kane and he pings it wide to Son or something like that, and Son runs up the pitch, but just seemed like that out wasn't there. I don't know if it was because something good that Palace were doing, but I was quite surprised at how early they went deep.
I think, Scotty, we're obviously talking about this week about taking your moments and taking the opportunity and rising to the occasion. It was really interesting to me what Greg just saying with Spurs, where they did go defensive really early, and typically that is what Jose Mourinho does. That's what he's done before with Chelsea teams to winning league titles, Inter, Real Madrid. He does do that, and he's very good at that. But Greg's spot on. They went defensive early. I wonder if they felt the pressure a little bit, that group of players subconsciously. Because I don't know, it feels early on like the Liverpool and Spurs are like almost the two teams kind of going for it. And you felt like watching that game that there was a little bit of pressure on Spurs. And they maybe just sat in a little bit too early. Because
surely too early to be feeling pressure, though.
Especially at 1-0 up, with the quality Spurs have on the pitch, never sit deep. They had enough quality to go and kill that game. But away to Crystal Palace on a wet day, that's a horrible fixture. And Palace are a hard-working team, and they've still got quality in the pitch to go and win a game as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those fans massively help. See, when the Palace had a couple of chances, they took them horribly, a couple of chances over the bar and stuff, but you can see the fans getting into the game. There was a bit of energy there, and that kept those players going. And after about 5 minutes, you felt Palace are definitely scoring here. The momentum totally shifted, and that's when Spurs started playing so deep and so defensive. There's a couple of times Kane looked up for that ball to Son. It just wasn't on. They were pressed in. They totally killed the counter-attack.
I'm saying they sat in and the mentality, they maybe felt a little bit of pressure. And I think part of what I mean there is also what we said about they didn't have their own fans to spur them on there. You know what I mean? And again, going back to what I said earlier about the group that is tight together and digs themselves out of situations, that's something you're going to have to deal with this season when you go away to a team that's allowed fans. You're going to have to dig deep and try and get through that with no one, whoever's in there is against you, and the energy is towards the other team. That's going to be something people have to play with, and that's obviously something that's brand new in football.
I don't necessarily think Spurs bottled that pressure-wise on the weekend, though. I think Palace got themselves back in the game and made it difficult. In a wet pitch, it's hard to keep passing it about, and I don't feel like it. I don't come off after watching that game going, Spurs chuck that there.
Yeah, so
still had chances to go and win the game. And
just to be clear, I think you're going to say something there, Greg. Before you do, just to be clear, I'm not at all saying that Spurs bottled it. I'm just saying that it was interesting, like you said, Greg, how early they went deep, and there was a great thing from Gary Neville, and he said about the Man City game as well. He said champions in situations when they step forward and they dominate games, and Spurs definitely could have stepped forward and kept that going and made that 2-0. And if it went 2-0, it probably was over. And I just don't know. It again, it's one game. Yeah. It's something to pick apart of. It's something that I thought of watching the game. It was just interesting. By no means do I think they bottled it. But
Matthew said it a lot better than me, but he made the point, and Palace playing 4-4-2, they made it really difficult for Spurs to go and dominate that game. They pat that midfield, and they've got a lot of good players who can win the ball back and still play football.
They did.
So they made it. They cancelled out Kane and Son superbly, I thought.
I mean, because on the flip side, Greg, again, I want to kind of talk about these two games simultaneously. Liverpool started absolutely horrifically against Fulham. Same thing, wet night in London against a Fulham team. When you're the champions, everyone is going to have that little bit extra because they want to try and scalp you. And that's something that this Liverpool team, I think, are still trying to work out a little bit. They haven't had that before, right? Jurgen Klopp has had that before at Dortmund, but it's a different league. Liverpool were poor and probably deserved to lose that game, but they kind of had the reversal where they were behind and they needed to get back into it, and they did. And I felt like Liverpool were doing what they could do in that game to try and go on to win it. Do you know what I'm trying to say? This is not me I'm not trying to be biased towards Liverpool here. I'm looking at it from a football perspective. Spurs sat in a little bit, and I know this may be two different styles of teams, but Spurs sat in. I know they were winning. Spurs sat in and just kind of looked a little nervy, and Liverpool took step forward and kind of tried to step up to the plate and didn't get the win, but they got a point.
This is what I was going to say just back a second as well. Craven Cottage is also, you've got to take into account, as you were saying about fans and just getting on the home sides or getting on the away team's back, so to speak. That's exactly what I think Liverpool were facing, and it shows you how tough it was. I think, obviously, Fulham had fans, and it must be tough to deal with that as an away team when every single cheer is for you, and there's not even any form of support, even in like an away travelling support, which away supporters tend to be or can be even louder than home support at times, because it's the diehards that obviously go away.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I know exactly what you're getting at in terms of Liverpool were almost trying to get onto the front foot to go on and win the game, where Spurs never really were. But I think as well, you've got to maybe take into account that Liverpool's mentality will be Fulham away. I think Jamie Carragher said he fully expects them to go down. Liverpool will be, they've got that mentality because they think we need to win this game. Where I think away to Palace isn't the easiest place to go. I think the opposite side might be Spurs thinking a point's not horrendous here.
Oh, a lot of good teams will drop points to Crystal Palace. Whereas if you're Liverpool challenging for the league, you need, no matter what the circumstances, you need to go to Fulham and beat them.
Yeah, I'm torn because I don't necessarily agree. I don't necessarily disagree. A point, I think this season more than any other, a point in a game in both these games for these teams this season is maybe not a bad thing, especially with how results went. But at the same time, I want to see, obviously, clearly Liverpool, but I just wanted to see Spurs at 1-0 up. I was interested to see them step forward and put their foot on the gas and kill the game off and get the win. And they just didn't do it. And maybe that's not their style. And it is more, Liverpool are more on the front foot than the Spurs team are. But it
I'll
was,
tell you what, Liverpool are away to Palace on Saturday at noon. So
yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how Liverpool go there and try and play, obviously after playing Spurs midweek as well.
Do we? We'll do that actually towards the end of that question. But I don't want to go too deep into this because we could have a conversation about an incident or incidents for the whole podcast if we wanted to. But just in a couple of words on both instances for both of you, I'll start with you, Scotty. First of all, do you think the Fabinho tackle was a penalty for Fulham? And secondly, do you think the handball that Liverpool got given was a handball and a penalty? Just kind of quickly. We don't need to go deep on it, but
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to get involved in the penalty, but for the handball, he's turned his back and his elbow's out, and the defender next to him stand there like that. So yeah, that was a handball.
Greg?
I think the Fabinho one is a really awkward one because I think from one side it doesn't look like a pen and the other side it does. So I generally think that's just an occasion where you just have to go with the on-field decision, which it wasn't given as a penalty at the time. So I think you've got to stick with that. But if the ref's given that as a pen, there's no way they overturn it. So that's when you've just got to go with that decision. The handball one, I think, to the letter of the law, yes. But should that be the rules? No.
Again, with that, I think to the letter of the law, that Fabinho one is a penalty because he's made. I personally wouldn't give it as a penalty, but he's made contact and he's gone through him. It's a penalty by the letter of the law. And VR, I'm surprised VR didn't give that as a penalty.
I think the Lookman one's a red card though.
Yeah, he's gone quite hard. And we said with the Fabinho one, didn't we? When it was doing the replay, we were all like, he's gonna give it as a pen. Yeah. He's gonna give it. I was really shocked he didn't give it. If that was fucking Bruno, not even Bruno Fernandes, if that was Harry Maguire doing that tackle on the Fulham player in the box, I still generally don't think personally it's a penalty. But I agree with what you guys said. Letter of the law, it probably should have been given. I wanted to finish before we move on to Fulham. That Liverpool Spurs game seems really big on Wednesday. It's early on in the season. It's just coming up to the Christmas period. It's getting to the point where everyone always says the table kind of starts to take shape. I don't know if it is this season personally, but that game feels huge. Are Liverpool and Spurs the two teams that we think are going to be the two that are going for it towards the end of the season, or is it too early to say either way?
Too early.
I think it's way too early. And as you say, there's going to be so many ups and downs this season with injuries. And like even then, it's not like in previous years when, as you say, like Man City have been hardly losing, Liverpool have obviously done quite well. And there's been like runaway leaders, so to speak. I don't think that'll happen this year. And I hope for this as well, by the way. I hope for a classic helicopter Sunday, final game of the season, and there's about 4 teams that can possibly win it. Because it's just way more entertaining. We've not had that in a while, in terms of obviously the year that Liverpool were close to City and they pipped us by a point, but they were playing Brighton at home. It wasn't a case that we were ever really going to lose. So a proper entertaining final Sunday where teams need to go and need to win, and that's what I hope for this season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. Liverpool got it last season. They ended the wait. It was nice that it was comfortable, but I love football in general. I want a close title race, and if my team's involved in it, then great. It makes it even more exciting. I heard I watched on the kickoff, that if anyone hasn't watched that, by the way, it's on Twitch now, but they put clips up on YouTube. It's an interesting football show. It's quite good. One of the guys said on it, he's a Chelsea fan. He said there's more chance of Spurs. What did he say? He said there's more chance of Spurs not making the top 4 than there is them winning the league title. Does that make
Right.
sense? Yeah. So, which I thought was a bit of a bold statement because they're looking good. He obviously has been there with Mourinho as a manager, and he was saying that there's just this thing with Mourinho where if it can just go sour out of nowhere really quickly, which definitely we've seen in the past. But I don't know. I don't see. I feel like Mourinho's.
We're seeing a different Mourinho now, aren't they?
Those Tottenham players look like they're all ears to everything he says. They look like they can't wait to go into training and lap up everything he's telling them. So I think that speaking about mentality, there's one man that knows how to mentally get through big games and win titles, and that's Jose Mourinho. So I'm looking forward to that game on Wednesday. I think that's going to be a decent game, and that could be a bit of a psychological edge for either team if they get a wee win. I hope it's not a boring 0-0 game.
I was about to say, not to burst your bubble, big Premier League game, two big teams, boring 0-0.
Probably going to be shite. To finish off on the games that we watched, I wanted to talk about Fulham because I think they deserve a lot of praise for how they approached that game. They took it to the current champions. They've obviously been extremely poor this season. Every single person has probably said they're going to get relegated. And results like that can do a lot for a team, and performances like that can do a lot for a team and start to kick you on. And one big thing I was really impressed with, I don't know if I've said it on here, but I've said it to you guys privately, and I've certainly said it to Matthew. We had this debate, is that Scott Parker finally adapted his way of playing in a game. And what I mean by that was, it's not like they just went like long ball and just tried to lump it and that. They still looked to play, but they didn't do it every time. They went big from goal kicks a lot. They didn't try and play out against probably the best front pressing team in the league. And I just think well done to Scott Parker, because that shows he's adapted as a manager. He's looked at what's wrong, and it fucking paid off for them. They deserve. If any, Liverpool were lucky to get a point. Fulham deserved to win.
I don't think Liverpool are expecting that either. Nobody was expecting that from Fulham.
No. We said we said, sorry, Greg. We said that Fulham were going to be open, and we thought it was going to be comfortable, and they were very good.
And by the way, I know it was his first game back from injury, but Lookman had Trent on his toes. Yeah. Lookman was, every time Lookman got the ball down that left-hand side, Trent looked like he was struggling.
Yeah.
And when Fulham played the way they did with those two out balls to Lookman and the boy that scored on the other side, can't remember his name, but they looked good, but they still go down.
I watched second half of Fulham Everton, and that's exactly how they played, and they gave Everton a right good game that second half. There's still some quality in that Fulham team. It was
just really refreshing to see that he's learned. It's actually I always liked Scott Parker as a player, and I quite like him as a manager. I like the way he talks, and I actually thought, I've said this to you guys, that a team will take on the characteristic of their manager, and modern day football, coaches want to open up, they want to play out from the back, and that's the way it's gone, and that's fine. But I feel like what you saw from Fulham in that game, with bits of that, was a team that had the characteristic of what their manager was as a player. He dug in, he worked hard, he was a good football player, he could play, but he had that side of him where they worked hard, and he was a good centre midfielder. He'd win the ball, he was clever, he was smart, and I just thought that was an interesting little change in Fulham and Scott Parker, I think, maybe is a coach having a bit more belief in himself and putting more of who he is into the team. And they look like they what's the word? Took it on board, I guess. And it was a great result for Fulham. I like the guy. I hope they kick on and do all right.
I like him. With Scott Parker. I think he'd be a good laugh.
Yeah, I think he would be too. He's always dressed like he's going out in Green Street.
Before we finish on Liverpool, Matthew Cannon with Andy Robertson as captain in fantasy. What a fucking shambles.
How many folk would have had Robbo in there and Salah and Mane? I mean, everyone thought
nobody's captain in Robbo.
Everyone thought that was a shoo-in. The captain was a bit of a bold move.
Lack of football knowledge.
One team, just we'll hit a couple more points very quickly, and then if you guys have got anything else you think I've missed off from the weekend that you want to say, you can. Speaking of rising to the occasion, Leicester took a huge advantage of everyone dropping points and putting in a really, really solid performance against Brighton. The game was over at halftime. James Maddison was quality. Greg, you had Jamie Vardy as his captain and fantasy team, propelled him massively up the league. And Leicester stepped up to the plate. They knew the results of the other games, and they went out there and they put on a performance and they won. Fair play to them, and Brendan Rodgers thought they were really good.
I think so. I think when Leicester are on, they're unbelievable.
Yeah.
They just have too many off weeks to be able to fully challenge, I think. If you're talking about league and talking about title contenders, if they're on, they're unbelievable. But they just have too many poor performances where they just don't create, and like they even got away with one against Sheffield United the week before. Which I suppose you could argue that's what title contenders do. They go on to win those games, but like Liverpool scudded them a couple of weeks ago. They're very good, but I think again, if they get top 4, I think they'll be happy.
Brendan Rodgers, Greg, we obviously had him as manager at Liverpool. To me, he seems like a manager that works really well off of momentum. And when that momentum gets like halted, it takes him a little bit to get back into it. And I think he needs to find out a way of how to get over that as a manager. Because like you say, when Leicester play well, they're decent. And when they're up for it, and when they're on a good run of form, they're really difficult to beat. But they always just kind of seem to do it for a little bit, and people talk about them, and then they lose, and all of a sudden they've lost 2-3 games or drawn a couple, and it's like, fuck, where did that come from? They feel like he needs momentum.
Yeah.
Brendan Rodgers, obviously he went unbeaten at Celtic, right, Scott?
Yeah.
In one season. So
what a call it was when he swapped Justin over to the right.
Yeah.
Unbelievable tactical decision. I think I won the game for him.
Matthew said it as well. He's really well suited to them, and the players he's bought suits him because he's good at making players better. Do you know? I mean, that sounds obvious as a coach. That's his job, but he's good at making players better, right? And he's just don't feel like he's the type of guy that should have superstars and stuff. Like he feels like he suits Leicester. Leicester suits him. The players they have is Brendan Rodgers. I think Leicester should keep a hold of him. You never know what he could do. They definitely have got some. Again, don't think they can win the league. I think they'll dip off. I think they'll drop too many points, but they took advantage of other teams dropping points this weekend. Greg, you mentioned Sheffield United. They are hopeless. They are hopeless this season. And by the way, Chris Wilder, great guy last season. Sheffield United, everyone loved them. Loved Chris Wilder. They did well. They definitely, speaking of momentum, they caught a bit of momentum. They ran with it. It worked for them. They are in a lot of trouble right now because they just can't have anything seem to go for them.
I seen a thing about Derby County fans getting excited because I think they're definitely on the way to picking up the least amount of points ever in the Prem. Because this is such an obvious statement, but conceding goals the way they do and not scoring goals is recipe for fucking disaster.
Well, mate, to back up your point, they've now gone 15 Premier League games without a clean sheet. They are the only team without a clean sheet so far this season.
And they're trusting Ollie McBurney and Ollie Burke to play up front.
Yeah, they don't have the firepower up top, and they're not doing what they did really well last season, which is defend well and keep them in a game. Then keep them in a game for a good set piece or something, which they did, right?
See, when you're talking that way, you know who that reminds me of?
Who?
Steve Clark.
Yeah, it kind of does, to be
boring,
fair.
0-0, 1-0 defeats with Ollie McBurney up front.
It does, man. It does. Last thing I've got that I thought about to mention that I thought was quite interesting was, again, Liam, my mate over in Cali, said this. Dortmund sat the manager and he was like, Pochettino would be a great fit for that and would be cool to see Poch there. And I think that would be a great job for Poch to take to get back into football. Borussia Dortmund, lots of young, very talented players. Youth system is what they do, right? They love getting in these young players, making them better. Poch can definitely challenge for league titles there. He'll be in the Champions League. I'd quite fancy him to get that job. I'd like that.
I think so. I think you might go there. I think that'd be a good appointment for both him and for Dortmund. So I think it'd be a good fit.
Is that after Pochettino league with Celtic? Is it?
I think it was
Poch to Celtic.
Fucking hell. Big blow to someone like Man United who are still in and out if he went there and signs a deal, because he's the type of guy that is going to go somewhere for probably a good 3-4 years. Like, don't think he's going to bail after a year or two.
Yeah, I think United have committed to Solskjaer now.
Yeah.
So we'll wait and see how that goes.
Pochettino and Haaland could be a naughty combination.
Yeah, I mean, I really think Poch would suit Dortmund. I hope he takes that job. I've always liked Dortmund as a club. When this COVID goes away, it's definitely a wee trip I'd like to do. A wee trip to Dortmund for a weekend and get a game. I think it would be a class stadium and a great place to go see. Anything else this weekend, lads, or something that's coming up that you think I've missed?
Nah, I think we've covered it.
I think we covered that. I think that's a decent length. That's going to be one of the longer ones. But
Tom Simmons is officially bottom of the fantasy football league.
Tommy Simmons.
Everyone have a beer on me.
COVID. You heard that, everyone. Get Scotty to Monzo you. You'll get a free pint if East Lothian doesn't go back to tier 3. That was good. I thought that was a good chat. We went into depth about a lot of things there. It's definitely probably the longest or one of the longer ones we've done. But if you watch this and you stick out the whole way, thank you. Please continue to tell people about it, like it, share it on Instagram, subscribe to YouTube. We're on all the podcast apps, officially on TikTok. Still trying to work out how the fuck that works. I'm going to get Greg and Tommy to help me out with that. But and we're going to look to get a little something going in person over the next couple of weeks. So a lot of exciting things coming, and Scotty still wants Arteta out there on the back. Classic. All right, lads. Cheers again, Scotty and Greggy, for doing it, and we'll get Matthew back involved as soon as possible.
The fans' favourite.
Sam boys. Cheers.
Cheers.